Hi guys, alright, so in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to create the sports bra within Marvelous Designer. We'll be doing everything from start to finish. I'll be showing you how to sketch this pattern. We'll go ahead and simulate this, and then from here we'll export this out of Marvelous Designer, take it over to Zbrush and just do some minor touch-ups, and we'll be creating the Adidas logo as well, and then we'll be doing some very quick texturing and lighting within Keyshot for our garment. I hope you guys are ready, and I hope you learned something useful from this. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and get started, and I'm gonna actually go ahead and create this as a high collar sports bra, because we're gonna have that branding or the logo on here that we're going to be applying in Zbrush. So let's go ahead and get started with this. I'm going to start with the polygon tool, and I'm going to start here by the trap and shoulder region. So I'll just draw out a line like this and then come down here. Now again, at Power of Marvelous Designer, since it's been simulated, it will allow me to adjust some of the design as well, so I can always adjust this later. So I'll come to that center line, and then over here I'm holding shift so that it stays constrained and I can draw a straight line like this. And then I'm going to come down till about here. I'll come across, I'm holding shift again, come up, and now we need to create a sketch over here for the arms. So I'll just connect that, and then I'm going to use the curvature tool, and we'll add a curve over here, and we'll add a curve over here as well. So I'm sure you guys can already see that pattern that we're getting over here with the sports bra, and I'm actually going to move this down just a little bit, so holding shift just to constrain it to that line. And then from here what I'm going to do is right click, go to clone as symmetric pattern with sewing. If you guys are using an earlier version, I think there's also an option that says clone as symmetric pattern. It just won't have the sewing option. And then I'm holding down shift again, so it's on that same line, so it just created a symmetric pattern. So that'll be the front of the sports bra, and then I'm going to select both of these, press Ctrl C, Ctrl V, put that over there, and I'm going to say, I'm going to right click and flip horizontally, and I'm going to move this towards the back. Okay, and now we can start sewing. So I'm going to go to the segment sewing. I'm going to sew these two together. I'm going to sew this to this side. Oh, sorry. I'm going to sew this to this side, and since it's got that symmetric sewing, it automatically sewed these two sections together as well. Then I want to sew this, and then again symmetric sewing does it automatically for this section as well. So that's basically, this is our basic shape for the sports bra. It's really simple to do. And then I'll just click on simulate. Oh, sorry, let me just undo that because I forgot to sew the back. You'll see that if I actually click on simulate, the back isn't sewed. So just go ahead and make sure you sew this as well. And now if I click simulate, we've got a standard sports bra. Now it's really tight on our avatar over here. So we're going to have to be adjusting a couple things to get this right. One of the things that we can do is we can adjust the skin offset so that it's not so tight on our character, or we can adjust the sketch itself. So I'm actually going to go to scene, go to avatar. Let's see over here. There we go. So under avatar you'll probably see the name of your OBJ, and then we have skin offset. I'm probably going to put this on, let's try 0.6, and you'll see that when I adjust that skin offset, it basically, that's exactly what it's doing, it's offsetting it from the skin. So if I go for a little bit of a higher value, it should help as well. And then from here we can obviously just adjust and pull this until we get something that we're happy with. So this will be the start. We've still got a couple of things that we need to adjust before we continue, and we'll be doing that in the next part. You can see the back. Alright, so let's continue. Okay guys, so as I said, we're just going to solve some of these issues with it not being so tight on our avatar. We did adjust the skin offset. We can still adjust that a little bit further So maybe on 1.5. Okay, so if you put the value too high, obviously, like I said, this is offsetting it from your character. So now it looks like the bra is floating, and that's not correct. So I'm going to undo that, and we're going to adjust some of the pattern here just to not make this so tight. So this spacing over here, I'm actually going to move this and make the spacing a little bit larger. I'll do that for the front and back. So now if I click on simulate, it's just giving a little bit more breathing room over there. And let me see. Okay. So another thing that I can try over here is I can select both of these patterns and just apply some thickness to it. So I'm going to put a thickness of 2 and make sure that I've got this selected, thick textured, and you'll see that that does solve some of the problems that we were having. And now our garment actually has some thickness applied to it, which is really important. You can go ahead and adjust that, and now you can see that by applying some of that thickness to our garment, it did help with some of the issues we were facing over here with it intersecting with our character. And of course we want some thickness to our garment as well. So like I said, this is one style of sports bra that we could go with. We've got this low sweeping collar, or we can make this, we can move this collar further up. So I think I'm going to go with that version. I'll see which one I like better, but if you guys are happy with this particular design, you can actually stick with this. We're definitely going to be adding some more to our sports bra here, but alright, let's continue, guys. Alright guys, so to change the shape of this, what I'm going to be doing is, since we've got a curved line over here, I'm just going to select this. I'll select both of these, and I'm going to right click and say delete all curve points. So that's going to turn that into a straight line, and then I can select these dots and just move them back up to the top. We'll say till about there, and then I can add some curvature here. And I'm going to re-simulate that, and there we go. So again, this is another style of sports bra where it isn't so low cut, and I think I'm going to probably go with this one because I've just got more space for the logo placement here as well. I'll maybe go back and just adjust this a little bit. I want to make sure that I'm also adding some curvature here to the back as well. And just adjusting some of this. And now guys, again, another way that we can prevent this from basically intersecting with our avatar. I showed you skin offset, I showed you adding thickness can solve some of the problem, but if we actually change our simulation properties, so if we go to preferences and simulation properties, if we change the preset from normal to complete, it's actually going to save us a couple of headaches down the line. So you'll see that immediately now, since I put it on complete, it just makes the simulation a lot more accurate. It might be a little bit slower, but like I said, this is going to save you some headaches in the long run, especially when you've got multiple garments on your character. This simulation complete is just going to make things a lot more easier for you guys. So I'm just going to go ahead and adjust this until I'm happy with it. Maybe I'll go back here to the pattern, maybe make this a little bit lower, I'll see, but this does look like the type of sports bra that I am trying to go for. So we'll continue from here. Okay. Right guys, so I think I got it to a particular shape that I'm happy with, and all I did was, I hardly did anything. I just selected these points and moved them down a little bit, and then just adjusted the garment here as well. Now something that I want to point out, if some of you guys are looking at your garments and you see that it's all blocky and choppy like this, you don't have to worry about that, because we'll actually smoothen that out using this over here. It's called the particle distance. So if we lower this distance, it just adds more detail to our mesh, and it's going to increase the simulation time as well. But we'll do that right at the end, because having a high particle distance just allows us to work a lot more easier as well, without having to wait a really long time for the garment to simulate. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing next is I'm going to be adding like a strip here at the bottom. that goes around to our sports bra, just to add some more detail to it, and then yeah, we'll continue from there. Okay. Right, so to add that strip here at the bottom, we just have to analyze our design, and you can see that it's in 4 sections, so we're going to need 4 strips. So I'm going to draw one out like this, and then Control C, Control V, and select these 2, Control C, Control V, and place it this side as well. So now we just need to sew these together. I just want to make sure that I'm placing these strips at the back, and I also want to make sure that I right click and flip horizontal. So that should be fine. Okay. Oh, and I don't know if I'm mentioning this too late, but it doesn't really matter right now because I haven't adjusted any values here. But you'll notice that in the fabric section I actually have a separate fabric applied to this, and the reason why I did that, I just clicked on add and I just changed the color because the original color was on white and I couldn't really see it against my garment. So it's not something too major, but if you wanted to change the color, just click add and then go to color over here. It brings us up and you can change the color, and then what you would have to do is go to your garment, select all of that, and you'll go to fabric, click on the drop down arrow and you'll select that new fabric. But anyway, let's sew this together. So I'm sewing this to this, this to this, and then at the back I'm sewing this to this and this to this. Let me just move this down as well, and then I want to make sure that I'm sewing these 2 together in the front, and at the back I'm sewing these 2 together as well, and then I want to make sure that I'm sewing across, so this to this and this to this. So now if I click on simulate, we've got a strap on there. Now I just want to analyze this a little bit better so I can see what's going on. Okay, there we go. I had to pull the garment down because it was starting to get really tight over there. But now you can see that we've got the strip here at the bottom, and it just adds a little bit more detail to the sports bra. Now you can see this top section, if you don't want this top section to be at an angle like this and you want to bring this down, it's really simple. All we have to do is basically make the front a little bit longer. So I'm just going to move these shapes down. I'm going to select edit pattern, select this line, and again, since it's symmetric, it selects the other side as well, and just drag this down, hold shift. And now if I click back on simulate, again I'm just going to have to pull that forward so that snaps out of there. But you can see now, if this is something that you're going for and you don't want it at such a sharp angle, you just make the front a little bit longer to get the desired result that you are going for. So we're still going to go ahead and adjust this some more, but we've got that bottom strap on there as well. Alright, so let's continue. Okay guys, so I felt like this is getting a bit too long now. I actually want to make this a bit shorter, so what I'm going to do is I'm first going to make this shorter. So I'm going to drag this up to about there, and then again I want to make sure that the back is shorter than the front so that it's not at such a sharp angle. And then I'm going to make this a little bit thicker, so I'll select all of these, drag that up, make it a little bit thicker, and then click on simulate. Okay, so I think this is something that I might be going for. It depends on you guys. You also have some freedom here. If you want to make this thinner, it's completely up to you guys, but I did want to make this a little bit shorter because I felt like it was just coming too far down. Alright, so let's continue. Alright, so let's go ahead and add some more detail to our sports bra. So I'm going to add just a pattern here at the top as well, just so we can see some stitching up there as well. So just adjust this a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, use the rectangular tool, draw something out like that. Move that up, Control C, Control V, and then that'll be the front. Duplicate that. Oops. And place this at the back. Flip horizontal. Okay. Right, so let's start sewing this. So I'm going to sew this section to this section. This section to this section. And then I want to sew these two pieces across. And then I'm going to do the same this side. And then I want to make sure that I sew from here to here. So it's sewing across, and then do the same over here. Okay, so if I click on simulate, we've now just got some more detail over here on the sports bra. That looks pretty nice, you can see over there. And I'm going to be doing the same for this arm region as well. Okay. Right, so just like what we did by the collar, again, rectangular tool, draw this down, Control C, Control V, and then duplicate that for the back, flip horizontal, place that there, and again, let's start sewing. So I'll sew this to this, and this to this, this to this, this to this. Let me just see what's going on here. Okay, and then I need to sew across. So this to this. Oops. Let me just see. We need to sew from year to year. Sorry guys, sometimes I actually get a little bit confused with the way it actually needs to be sewed. Let me just simulate this quickly and see what's happening. Okay, so it's this area over here that needs to be sewed. So let me just undo that. So I need to sew across from here. Okay, so from here to here, and I want to make sure it's not getting tangled like that. Right, there we go. You want to make sure that you've got these straight lines, and then I'm going to do the same for this one. There we go, straight line. So now if I click on simulate, I have to do the same for the top as well. Let me just see. Yep. Okay, so I need to sew that top section as well. So exactly like what we did here at the bottom. And from here to here. There we go. And then I click on simulate. And we've got a strap that goes around there as well by the arm region. And like I said, it's just adding a little bit more detail to the sports bra in terms of like separation of where stitching is, and it looks nice with the final product. Okay. Right, so let's continue. Remember guys, if you feel like your garment's starting to lose a little bit of its shape, remember this is being simulated. All we'd have to do over here, like you can see this collar region is too far up. I'll just come over here and pull this down. So I'll pull it down quite a bit from here, just to get a little bit more of that shape back. So you guys must just play around with the simulation properties on this, and yeah, do that until you get something that you guys are happy with. I think we've actually created our sports bra now. We've got the shape, we've put on all of that stitching, indicated where different seams are going to be. So I think we can actually go ahead and start lowering the particle distance on this, so that we just get a much more better visual representation of our garment. Alright guys, so you'll see that I wanted to make this sports bra just a little bit more accurate, and I basically made it a little bit shorter, as you can see on the sketch, and just making sure that the front is a little bit longer than the back. And I moved this up until I basically wanted the separation over here. You can see we've got this bottom section that's stitched over here just below the breasts, and I think this just looks a little bit more aesthetically pleasing and a little bit more accurate to something that represents a sports bra. So this was my end result, and I think this is something that I'm happy with. So from here, what I will do is I'll go to I'm going to select my entire pattern, so I'll go to the transform pattern, and I'll just draw a rectangle over everything. And then here by particle distance, I'm going to put this on something as low as 5, and then I'll click enter. And the thickness, just to make sure we've got thickness on everything, I'm going to type in this value again, 2, click enter, and then I'll click on simulate. So it might take a little bit of time to simulate it. And remember what I said earlier, all that the blockiness that we see over here is going to get removed, so it's nice and round over there. And we're just going to get a lot more detail to our garment. So you can see this. We can see some of the polygons over here because I think the actual avatar that I'm using still has some visible blocky quads on it. But we can actually fix this in Zbrush by applying some smoothing to it as well, which I'll show you guys how to do. But there we go, guys. Here is our sports bra created in Marvelous Designer. So the next step, we'll export this out of Marvelous Designer, take it over to Zbrush, and detail it some more. Alright. Okay, so before I export this out, I just want to see how well this is going to handle with the animation if it's in another pose. Now I do have a full tutorial on how to morph garments to different poses, and if you check the description, I've supplied a link to that tutorial. So I'm going to go to simulation. I've already got this set up with the animation, and I'm going to click on this record icon, and it's going to put it into the pose state. And I just want to see how well this holds up. So it looks like everything's going fine so far. Okay. And then I'm going to make sure I go back to simulation. Stuff like this you don't have to worry about. You'll just have to click on resimulate, and it's going to do its best to try and separate itself from different sections like that. But we do have a garment where the hands are actually very, very close to the body, so certain poses like this would require a little bit more work just to prevent it from intersecting with different sections on the model. So that's just something to be aware of. But I was paying more attention to this section over here by the shoulders, and it seems to hold up pretty well, so I'm actually pretty happy with that. Like I said, I'll probably have to go back and adjust stuff like this so it's not intersecting with the hands. But I am going to put it back in the T-pose state, and then from there we'll just export it. Okay. And just to show you guys again another better representation of the sports bra, if I go ahead and select this pattern, and you can see I created another fabric over here, and I just changed the color. But if I change this fabric to that fabric 2, let me just go back into fabric 2, and I don't want that to be completely white. But now you can see we've got this really nice separation, and that's why I stitched these pieces on here, and yeah, it really looks like a sports bra now. So yeah guys, let's go ahead, export this out of here, take it into ZBrush, add some of that logo on there, and just fix some of this, and then At the end of this tutorial, you'll be equipped with the knowledge to create a garment like this, and maybe you guys will understand how patterns like this are actually put together. So I try to keep everything as simple as possible so that beginners can follow along as well. Alright, so let's continue. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and export this out. I'm actually going to be exporting these pieces over here as separate OBJs, and it's just going to give me a little bit more control in Zbrush. Now we could export this entire thing and then automatically generate polygroups, but I like to have control by having these as separate OBJs, and you'll see why when we actually import that into Zbrush. But before I actually export this, I'm going to get this into a pose state. Now I'm going to go into the animation section, and I do have a tutorial on how to do this on my channel, how to move garments from the T-pose to a pose state. And if you check the description, I've actually supplied a link to that tutorial if you guys are interested to do the same thing, or you can just work with your standard T-pose. But I'm going to pose this, so I'm going to click on that icon, and in Daz I basically posed her in a running like a running pose, because again this is a sports bra. I was going for just something a little bit athletic. So there we go. And then from here I'll go back into simulation, and I'll just simulate this quickly, just so it simulates onto the new pose as well. And you can see everything looks fine. We've got our pose state, so I'm happy with that, so I can stop the simulation. Right, so like I said, I'm going to be exporting this as separate OBJs. So I'm going to start with the main section over here of the sports bra, then I'll go to File, Export OBJ Selected, and let me just go and find that folder. So I'll say bra main _1, click Save, and then for my settings over here, I'm saving it as a single object. I'm going to make sure it's on thick with unified UV coordinates. Now the scale over here is going to be relative to the scale that you imported your avatar at. So I imported my avatar at 100% scale. It actually was on auto scale. When I imported it, it was on auto scale, but now when I'm exporting, the scale is on 100%, and I'm exporting it in centimeters dash studio. But like I said, you must just make sure that the scale is relative to how you imported it if you just want this to be accurate, so that it actually fits into your model when you bring it into ZBrush. And then we could save it with the texture file, but I'm not going to do that. I just want the OBJ. So then I'll click OK, export that out, and I'm going to do the same for these pieces. So I'll select all of that, File, Export Selected, and I'll say bra main 2, same settings, and I'll do the same for the bottom as well. So it's just going to give us a little bit more control over what we can select within ZBrush. The polygroups is fine, but I just like to actually have control over separate OBJs. So once we've done that, we've completed our bra. We've drawn the pattern, did all the stitching, and I put it in a pose state for this tutorial. And yeah, it's time to head over to ZBrush. I'm going to be showing you how we can actually get an Adidas logo on here, so that it can have its own separate material, and that's going to look really cool. And I'll show you how we can actually work with Marvelous Designer garments within ZBrush, like how we can retain these seams and some issues that you might run into and how to troubleshoot it. Alright, so let's continue. Okay, so we in ZBrush. First thing I'm going to do is import my posed OBJ of my character. So I've got running pose and I've got posed over here. So I'll import that, drag it out onto the canvas, click on edit, and just hide the light box and just activate a better matte cap material. Alright, and then I'm going to click on the star icon. I'll click on it once, then I'll click on it again, and it's going to bring up this window. I'll click on import, and then I'm going to go running pose and go and find that folder where I exported all of my OBJs. So bra main, I'll click on that again, import bra main 2, and I'll do the same for that last piece. So now if I go back to my running pose, go to the sub tool, I can now append those different pieces onto the avatar. So it's bra main 1, and then append bra main 2 and append bra main 3. Now you guys are probably noticing something over here, and this actually happens sometimes. You'll see that the garment tends to not be like a 100% accurate representation of what we saw in Marvelous Designer. Like you can see over here, it's intersecting with the avatar, but that's really easy to fix. I'm just going to go ahead and select that, and all I have to do is just use the move tool and just bring this out a little bit, just to make sure it's not intersecting with the model like that. And you can see the other pieces as well. So just some minor fixing that we have to sort out here. And this tends to happen when we've basically applied our garments onto a posed model. You get some issues like this, but it's really not that much of an issue. You can just use the move tool to adjust some of the stuff so that it's not in contact with the avatar. And if you see any more problems, like over there, maybe I can just move that down a little bit, but you can just use the move tool to adjust your garment like that. But I want to cover some really important stuff in Zbrush before we actually get started. So you'll see that from Marvelous Designer, this mesh actually came out, and it looks really ugly at the moment, right? That's because when we were doing that simulation, it was basically referencing all of these polygons on the model as well, and that's why we have all of these edges. But there is a way to smoothen this out and fix it, so I'll be showing you guys how to do that in the next part. But just for now, I want you guys, if you're experiencing the exact same problem as me, if you morphed your garment onto a pose state and some of your pieces are not where they should be, just use the move tool to bring them out and get everything back into the correct position before we continue. Alright guys, so common errors that you can actually encounter when using Marvelous Designer garments in Zbrush. One is the fact that your garments can look like this. Okay, so if I go to polyframe, you can see that this entire mesh is just triangulated, right? So you could create a cleaner version of this by using Z-Remesher, right? You could Z-Remesh this to get quads, so that you have a cleaner mesh to work on, and that's going to really come in handy if you plan to sculpt some more details onto this mesh. So that's one way to fix that. You can just use Z-Remesher to get quads. And then another thing, you'll see that we actually lost all of our seams, right? But they're still there. If I click on polyframe, you can see where those seam lines are indicated. We just have to figure out how to get them back and how to get them visible. So I'll be showing you guys how to do that as well. And some other problems that you can encounter is if you start smoothing on a garment like this, you see that it starts breaking apart, right? And that is not ideal. That's not what we want. So to fix the garment from breaking apart, you would go to Modify Topology and Weld Points. So I'll just do that quickly to show you. So now if I smooth over here, you can see that it's no longer breaking apart like it was just now. You just have to smooth accordingly, but that's just one way to fix that from breaking apart. Okay, so I'm just going to undo that. So those are just some common problems that you can face, but I'm going to be showing you guys now. We need to get those seam lines back and just get this looking a little bit better, so we'll be doing that in the next part. Okay, so for the purpose of the sports bra, I'm not going to be sculpting any more detail onto this mesh, so I don't need to Z-Remesh. The technique I'm going to be using here is I'm going to go to Edge Loop, and I'm going to be using group loops. So I'm going to be applying group loops to these three separate pieces. So I'm going to put my G polish on something low as, let's say 22, and I'm going to turn off triangle. I don't know, I just felt that I got better results by doing this. And then I'm going to click on group loops. As soon as I do that, you'll see that it smoothens out the mesh a little bit and gives us our seams back. Right, now you'll see if we go closer in, it's not 100% perfect. These pieces still break up, so if there's someone out there that actually knows why this actually occurs, I'll be really grateful to find a solution for that. But for the meantime, this is going to work for us. So I'm going to be applying a group loops to all of these pieces. But actually, wait, I'm not going to apply group loops to this piece first because I want the logo on here before I do a group loops. So I'm just going to undo that and let me see. Okay, so I'm going to hold Alt, select the strap and do the group loops. So 22, unselect triangle, click group loops. So you can see over there. Maybe I can even go a bit lower. Let me see. Okay, so I'm going to leave it on 22 actually. Let's leave it on 22 without triangle. Click group loops. And then okay, so I'm just having a look at this, and I'm going to be doing the same for this bottom piece. Put this on 22 and group loops. You see we get back those seams and it just makes it a little bit more smooth. Okay, so before I do a group loops on this piece, I'm actually going to duplicate this and hide the original. And now I'm going to divide this. Oh, sorry, I'm going to go to geometry and just weld points first so it doesn't break up like that. So weld points and then divide. And then I'm just going to smooth out this area over here. I'm trying not to touch that center section because I actually don't want this seam on the logo as well, unless that's something you guys are going for. But I'm going to do that, but I'm going to divide this actually quite a bit. I want to get it into the millions, just so that the logo is really crisp and clear when we apply an alpha on here. So the higher the subdivision level, the crisper our alphas are going to be, and when we need to extract them. So I'm going to divide that one more time. It should take us to about 10 million. So 10 million should be fine. And then what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to hold down Control to go to the masking section. I'm going to go to Alpha and I'm going to import this Adidas logo. So whatever logo you use, and you want to make sure the background's black and the logo is white for the Alpha. So it's basically going to isolate that background and we'll just have the logo on its own. And then I want to make sure I use rectangle. So rectangle, I'll show you the difference. If we use drag rectangle, for example, you can see that it starts fading out on the edges. Now you can adjust that under the alpha settings, but if you want a crisp and clear alpha, all you have to use is the rectangle. So you'll see that I'm drawing that out and then holding down space to choose the positioning of where I want it. So maybe I'll go with this location. Okay, and then from here I want to go to group mask, and then I'm going down to deformation and I want to put polish by features and polish by groups on 100. So I'll do that for both of them. Just let the process run. It takes a little bit of time. So I'm just going to cut forward here just to prevent you guys from waiting here and seeing this. So I'm just going to cut forward. Okay, so that's done. So the reason why I put that on 100, when I actually use transpose and I'm going to hold on Control to do like an extrusion, it's going to make my extrusions really clean. So if I go to transpose and I put my transpose line over here and I hold down Control and drag this out. Oh, sorry, I need to first delete the subdivisions because this is exactly what I'm talking about. You see those lines over there? It's actually going to make this a little bit smoother. So if I delete lower and now hold on Control and drag out, there we go. It's a lot, you can see now it's a lot cleaner. And then I'm just going to go to the front view and let's see. Now that should be fine. That looks fine. And then that should be its own separate By the way, that was supposed to be its own separate poly group. I don't know why it didn't do that, so I'm just going to invert the mask over here and group masked. So if I go to poly frame, yeah, there we go. It's just this has to be its own poly group in order to, just so I can separate this from the garment. And then I'm going to drag this out, holding down Control and left clicking to drag out. And I can probably move this down a little bit so it's not so distorted. And then now if I go to polyframe, yeah, there we go. That's its own separate poly group. And now what I'm going to be doing is I'm holding down Control and left clicking on this poly group. So it's going to isolate this logo by itself, and it hides the rest of the bra. And then from here I'm just deleting hidden. So now if I go to subtool, I've just got the logo on its own. Now you saw that there's a logo on the back as well, and I actually forgot to remove that when I drew out the alpha, but that's not a big problem. If I just solo this and I hold Control and draw out a, well, let me get rid of this alpha first, and if I draw out a rectangle just to mask that, and then I go to group masked and I want to make sure that that is its own poly group, so group masked. Come on, still looks like it's green. Group masked. Alright, there we go. I can see that is purple, so if I hold on Control, and you can see it's hiding the front one, but if I hold on Control and left click again, it hides that back piece, and then I can say delete hidden. Okay, and then from here you can see that we've got this logo on its own. So now I can unhide our previous bra that we created over here. And for this one, I can now go ahead and actually, let's see, I can go ahead and apply the group loops to this as well. So I'll click on group loops, makes it clean. So now we've got our bra, we've got our seams back in, and we've got our logo here. If you want to adjust this logo again, we can use transpose and maybe just rotate this a little bit. Now when we extracted it, it's using basically the exact same contour with how it was placed. So probably doing this is not ideal. We probably want to leave it at this exact same angle, and then if we really want to, we can just use the move tool to adjust it slightly if that's something that we're going for. Now I actually am going to move this a little bit more back, and you can see we still have to do just a little bit more work to get it to be positioned correctly on the sports bra. So just using the move tool so that it's flush against the sports bra. But we've got our logo over there, and the reason why I did this is I won't need to do any UVs or anything to get this Adidas logo in that location. That's its own piece of geometry, so I can just apply a separate material to that and it will be visible. So it just makes life a little bit more easier. Alright, and then I think I might go back and just try and adjust some stuff over here, maybe with the group loops. So I'm going to select this piece, undo that, and let's go back to group loops. If I put this value, let's say really low, maybe on 5, just trying to see. And like I said, it's not 100% perfect. There still is these gaps that are visible, and I really don't know how to fix that. So if someone has a solution for that, that will be really useful. But for what we wanted, we got all of our seams back. We've got a mesh that's a little bit cleaner, and we've got the logo on our sports bra. Alright, so what I'm going to do for this last bit is I'm actually going to just go to Welding Points, and I'm going to do it for these 3 pieces. And I'm just doing that just in case maybe I decide to come back and actually smooth certain areas. I don't want the mesh to break up. So just weld points. And then this piece, I'm going to try and get rid of all of this triangulated section. So I'm just going to divide that one more time. We've got 894. Alright, so from here, if you guys really wanted to, you could go to Z plugin and maybe use Decimation Master to reduce this polygon count. But this still works for me. I can use it in Keyshot, and I can use it in Cinema 4D. So the polygon count, I know it's quite high, it's nearly at 1,000,000, but it still works for me and for what I actually plan on doing. And you can see on the back here, there's a little bit of a problem. So there's still going to be just a little bit of work that we have to do to get it fixed. But as you can see, guys, we brought the garment into ZBrush. We got our seams back. We placed the logo on the sports bra. We got the mesh looking a little bit cleaner. But really, if I could just figure out how to fix these gaps, that would make this garment look a lot better than it does currently. But for this purpose, this does work. I might go back and just adjust certain things to make it ideal for myself. But from here, this would basically be the end of this. And then from here, I would just export the separate subtools out of ZBrush and import each subtool into the program of my choice. So I think for the tutorial, I'll use Keyshot. Just so I can quickly apply materials and lighting and get it ready for the final image. Okay. Alright guys, so I do have a temporary fix for these seam lines that I was complaining about earlier. And basically what I did was I went to geometry, edge loop, and then I went to modify topology, and I went to grid divide. Now that is going to obviously increase the polygon count of this. But then if I go back to edge loop and I apply a group loops now, you'll see that it still retains that shape, and it's still showing our seam line over there. So I don't know, maybe if that's something that you guys want to try, but if there is a better solution out there on how to still retain these seam lines, I would appreciate any advice. But that's just a temporary workaround, I guess, if you still want to keep this shape and not have those pinched areas over there. Okay, so in Keyshot, I'm going to go to File, Import. I'm going to find my running pose OBJ. So I'll import that. See location, keep original, and import. And then I'm going to go to File and import my sports bra. So I have these settings, and again, mine's in centimeter because that's what I use as my unit with DAS. Keep original, import. And I'm going to do that for all of these pieces. Import. Now you can see that it's showing as black, but that's not a problem. We're just going to apply. I'll apply a simple material on here quickly just to show the separation between these different pieces. So I'll go to paint, and let's just put, just for now quickly, a paint gloss on here. Alright, so let's continue, and I'll show you the materials I used. And yeah, let's continue, guys. There's one thing I want to point out that I probably would have fixed in ZBrush. You can see that this is actually not lying completely against the garment. So if I went back into ZBrush, I maybe would have spent some more time making sure this lines up on here. Or the first time when we did that control extrusion, I would have probably left that extruded part on the garment and then separated this piece as well. So maybe we would have filled that gap. But yeah, that's just two ways that maybe I would have fixed this. But it's not too much of a big deal, I guess. Maybe I'll go back and fix that. But for now, I just want to show you guys how I brought this to completion and what materials I used. So I tend to use paint materials, and then I just adjust the roughness. But this time I'm actually going to go to cloth and leather, and I'm going to use this nylon fabric on this section over here. Then I'm going to go to textures and just decrease the scale. And I don't know, I just thought that this nylon fabric looks really cool. And I'm going to apply a cloth weave to this piece, this piece. And then for the Adidas logo, maybe a paint material. So let's see, maybe a paint matte. And yeah, actually now you actually can take note of that. You can see that it's not lying flush and there's a shadow there, so I'm definitely gonna have to fix that. So just something to keep in mind, guys. Just pay attention to this logo in ZBrush. Maybe go back, adjust it so it's lying flush against here, and so you don't have this problem, same problem as me. And from here I would just maybe apply a studio environment. So let's see, maybe something like that. Change the color. I don't know, you guys can have fun with this process to come up with something. But those are the materials that I used, and I just thought that that nylon fabric added some nice texture to it, and that's basically what I did, guys. So I hope you've learned something useful from this. I've showed you what we can do with Marvelous Design, how we can bring it over to ZBrush, get some of the seams back in, add a logo, which definitely still needs some more work. So I'm sure you guys are in the same position as me right now, so I would go back and just fix that in ZBrush and then just import it into Keyshot again. But anyway, guys, like I said, I hope you learned something useful from this, and as always, stay tuned for some more tutorials. Alright, thanks for watching and goodbye. Okay guys, one last thing that actually wasn't the end. This is for anyone wondering how I actually got this lighting in the thumbnail, and it was actually really simple. I just went to environments, here by studio, the studio environments, they come with Keyshot. I selected all black, and then I went to environments, I went to HDRI editor, and you can see over here we've got these white areas over here, and these are basically pins. So what I did was I went to this arrow and I added a pin, and I just dragged it into those two locations, and then I edited the pin's brightness on some of them, and that was basically it, and it gave me this like dramatic rim lighting, which I thought looked pretty nice. Okay guys, so this is definitely the end of the tutorial now. I hope you've learned a bunch of useful tips and tricks, and as always, thank you for watching my tutorials, and stay tuned for some more. Alright, goodbye.